Hello, good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day here in New York, and we are very happy that we are again together for another series of talk on Saturdays promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation. Today we have a very special guest, LUIZ Lima, that is going to be talking to us about aspects of divine justice. But before we start all that, we would like to invite you to join us in our prayer. And so by elevating our thoughts, uniting our hearts, we ask our Heavenly Creator for guidance, for assistance, for inspiration for our guest speaker, so that his words may reach us and may help us in our day-to-day lives to become better and to work on our inner transformation. May all the good spirits be assisting us at this moment, may be together with us, cleansing our homes and ourselves, and may we feel the love and enlightenment that all those gatherings bring to us. And with that, we start our talk. Let me first introduce to you LUIZ Lima. LUIZ Lima has begun his journey in Spiritism since 1990 as a serious researcher on the scientific aspect of Spiritism. LUIZ has been facilitating the studies of how to bridge science and Spiritism in both languages, Portuguese and English. Mr. Lima is a renowned lecturer in the Spiritist movement and participates in local and national seminars and events all year around. LUIZ Lima holds a degree in electronic engineering, and he works in the computer networking industry. But above all, LUIZ has been a good friend of ours, very dear to our hearts. We have been working together for so long. He has been a great partner in all of this work of dissemination of Spiritism and spiritual values. So we are very happy to have you here today, LUIZ. And if you would like first, I forgot to greet the audience, everyone that is watching us. It's so many things we have to talk to. So thank you so much for all of you that have been, I think we've been doing that for 6 months already, and everyone has been so incredible, joining us and staying together with us. So LUIZ, please.
It's such an honor to be here today, to be on behalf of the USSF and discuss such for me at least, such an important topic, and divine justice. That's something really complicated, I would say, in the stage that we are all in on our journey to perfection. I think we need to understand a lot more about divine justice. It's that's why I decided to pick this topic, because for myself, that personally, it was something very challenging, and I decided to deepen behind the philosophy of the divine justice. So welcome everyone. So I would like to start by asking you a question. And the question is this: just think about it for a minute. Okay, just think about this for a minute. Do you think, or do you believe, that the crucifixion of Jesus was just and fair? Wow, what a question, right? The way that the question is posed here, it's a yes or no answer type of. Either you think it's fair and just, or you don't. But that's not it only. We want to know why. So whatever you answered here for yourself, it's a yes or it's a no. What's your justification behind it? What made you think it's a yes, or what made you think it's a no? This is very, very, very challenging, because if you look at human history or history of humanity, throughout all these 2,000 years, there are different opinions, there are different justifications. Even today, you might think one thing, the person next to you might think something different. So what we want to do today is dive a little bit behind the scenes, if you will, of what divine justice should mean to us. And then we're going to come back and try to address the question again at the end of it. So we are going to start in 1857. That's the same year the Spirits book was published in Paris, France. But we're going to start here, right here in the US. This man that you see on the screen here, Dred Scott, his history, his story is very puzzling, to say the least. He was a former slave in the early 1800s, and his owner lived in a state that did support slavery. That's why he was a slave. He was born within slavery. So, you know, he grew up as a young man. He became a man. He married and so and so. At one point, he was sold. His owner sold him to another owner. And this second owner moved from the state he was to another state. The state he moved to did not support slavery. And this same guy moved 6 other times. And all the states he went to, they were not in support of slavery. So slavery was forbidden in those states. So at one point in his life, Dred Scott said to himself and to his wife, well, I've been, you know, living in free, if you will, free states, or those states that do not support slavery for such a long time. I think I am entitled to the American citizenship. So he goes into whatever proper channels, fills out the forms and everything else, requesting his American citizenship. And the answer, there was, of course, an analysis and judgment. The answer came back as a no. You do not deserve the American citizenship. 9 judges voted on his request. For each of these judges had to justify why they were granting or not the American citizenship to Dred Scott. And that then, so with these answers and justifications from each of the 9 judges, a documentation was assembled. And from this documentation, a huge amount of paper, from these documents, we extracted some of the phrases that will justify the answer, why he wasn't granted the American citizenship. Number 1, this is in 1857, okay? So this is a straight copy of the documents. No editing, nothing like this. A Negro is not a human person and is property of his owner. A free Negro of the African race is not a citizen within the meaning of the Constitution of the USA. They are regarded as beings of an inferior order with no rights which the white man was bound to respect. Those who believe slavery is wrong should simply refrain from having slaves. And a man has the right to do anything he wants with his property, including his slaves. And lastly, the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. Wow, we are in 2020. This is not too far back. This is 150, 160 years. And this does not fit in our society today. This is something out of place and out of time. But you see, at the time, it was something that was received as nothing outrageous, just a normal outcome of the situation. In 1857, that was expected, and nothing was per se called the attention for any different action. However, 6 years later, America proclaimed the end of slavery. This particular fact has a tremendous influence on, it's almost like a catalytic effect on proclaiming the end of slavery in America. So for us, what does it matter for us? We go back 150, 160 years ago. This is what we had at the time as pretty much standard in our society. It isn't that way anymore. So there was a change in the way that our judicial system sees the thing. So with this, something starts to pop up. We had to change, we had to modify or adapt, to say the least, our laws, our judicial system to fit a new reality. And some of the aspects then in human justice begin to pop up, and they are not the same aspects of divine justice. Here's the first of all: time matters. Something like this in 150 years ago would not be acceptable today. Something like this, probably 200 years from now, might be slightly different. So time matters. Our laws, our divine, our human justice looks into time. Time matters. Here's another one: place matters. If the same thing in the same year, 1857, had taken place in another country, or maybe another part of the country, it would have a different outcome. So place matters. And lastly, social status matter. You know, he could have a different outcome if he wasn't, if he belonged to a different social class or something like that. So right here, we have three aspects that are part of human justice, but they are not part of divine justice. So it's kind of, human justice starts to drift apart from divine justice. There's going to be a point where we are so far from it that we barely understand it. And that's what I want to bring to you today. So right now, we have only, just to get started, three aspects with this case that we use in our human justice or human justice system, I would say. And these are not parameters used by divine justice. Okay. Let me bring you something else. This is one of the most puzzling communities in the world. It's slums in a community called Rocinha. It's in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It became a high touristic point for people around the world, because it's such such a difficult thing to understand, that it's spoken so much out there that tourists from different countries, they want to go in and see. And this is just a conglomerate of slums, and it's just awful. But I wanted to bring this to you so we can analyze a little bit. What you see here is a picture, it's a photograph taken from the back of the slums, if you will, on top of the hill, looking down, and you see a little bit of the slum on the bottom part of the photograph. Then you see an avenue, and then you see some nice buildings by the beach. The bottom part here is the slum, is the community, Rocinha. Those buildings are where the richest people in the country, not in the city, in the country, live. Those are the wealthy people. And these two things are separated by a 4-lane avenue. 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes another way, and that's all it is. So it's a tremendous contrast. They are literally, if you will, side by side. So there are 2 neighborhoods around this community, and these 2 neighborhoods, again, they are where the richest people, the wealthy ones, are. The population of this community, it's about 70,000 people. What is 70,000 people compared to what we know here today? It's a mid-sized town. It's the size of a mid-town in the US, 70,000 people. Now, that's not what catches the attention. What catches the attention is this. We have in this community 48,000 people per square kilometer living in there. And then, just like me, you would say, I don't really grasp the meaning. I kind of don't have an idea of 48,000 people per kilometer means. So let me give you some references here. These are 3 of the most populated cities in the world. You see here New York, Shanghai, and the greater Sao Paulo, Brazil. And you see the populations. Now, what is, in those 3 places, in those 3 cities, what is the density, meaning number of people per square kilometers? Here it is. Even New York City, which is this crowded city that we see pictures and everything, a lot of people, it doesn't even get close. It's 10,000 people, 10.7 thousand people per square kilometer. This community in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, is 48,000. So everything is like compressed. Everybody's living compressed. And this is another picture so you can have a better idea. A wider picture, you can see the wealthy ones down in the back, and a more wide view of the community. Now, one interesting thing is there is a photograph, which is this one. This became a reference for us to study. It's an iconic picture. It became an iconic picture, and it's used in studies to analyze rich and poor, wealthy and miseries, stuff like this. It's a well-known iconic picture, like I said. What you see here is on the left side of the screen, that would be the community, Rocinha. On the right side is one of the nice buildings, and you can see they have each apartment has its own patio with a pool. So it's a nice setup, a nice thing. So then I ask you, let's think about this together, actually. Suppose that you live on the left side. So you're living in the community. You open up your window, or you go out to the streets there, and what you see is what's on the right side. Do you think that the people living on the left side, do you think they like what they see? Do you think they see this as a just situation? For them, there is no justice, because they see a tremendous inequality here. They think they are entitled to have about the same thing that the guys on the right do. Now go the other way around. Let's see. Let's think that you live on the right side. You live in one of those nice apartments. You go out to your patio, and when you look out, what do you see? A nice conglomerate of nice things? No. You see what's on the left. So your view is not nice. Do you think the guys on the right side think it's just because they paid a ton of money for that place, that apartment, that location, and they don't have a nice view? Do you think they think it's just that they have to look at the left? They don't. So you see, the people on the left don't think there's justice. The people on the right don't think there's justice. So it's incredible. Like, both of them don't think it's just. So what happens here? Again, we are using parameters to justify that it is or it isn't just, but these parameters are not used by divine justice. First of all, we already saw three, right? Remember, place, time, and social status. So here's another one. Our justice is all fragmented. When I look from one side to another, I filter out everything else, and I look at what I want on that situation. I don't have a broader view. It's all fragmented. Our human justice is completely fragmented. We only look at what matters to us at the time and that place, right? Another one, human justice is based on revolt. If I revolt against something, it's not just, by definition, almost by definition. That's our natural way of thinking at the stage of evolution that we are. So revolt is a parameter that we use to think of something if it's just or not. And lastly, our justice clings to materialism, because the guys on the left, they want that physical apartment, they want that physical thing, the material things, material goods and wealthy, that the guys on the right do. And the same on the right, the guys on the right, they look at the left, they want something that is beautiful, shiny. They don't want to see that. So there's a lot of our justice, human justice, clings to materialism. So right now we have seen 6 parameters that are part of human justice, but not part of divine justice. Let's bring another thing to study so we can go through this together. It's called exoneration by DNA. What is that? So let's try to define exoneration by DNA. let's say somebody commits a crime, they are convicted, they receive a sentence, and let's say, just to make it easier, they go to jail. And later on, okay, DNA evidence, the person is already in jail. Later on, DNA evidence shows that the guy in jail is not really that person who committed the crime. It's got to be somebody else. Is not that person. So that person is set free because of DNA evidence. This is what exoneration by DNA is. Somebody being set free due to DNA evidence in regards to a crime that they have not committed. Let's go through this a little bit. Let's go easy here because it's really interesting. The first DNA exoneration in this country took place in 1989. So it's something fairly new, if you will, in terms of history of humanity. So it's fairly new. Since that day, we had, to the end of last year, okay, 367 exonerations by DNA. What does it mean exactly? 367 people were convicted and sentenced. They were in jail and they had not committed the crime. And during during whatever time you took, DNA evidence was able to prove that they were innocent and they were set free then. 367. Out of 367, we're going to go through some statistics here. The average time of somebody who is in jail and benefits from exoneration from DNA, the average time to be set free is 14 years. For something they did not commit, the average time is 14 years. Out of those 367 cases, almost 30% had to do with false confessions. So the person that was convicted is asked, did you do this, yes or no? They did not, but they respond yes. And why is that? Because of pressure, bullying, several different things. There's a lot of interest going around situations and crimes. So a family being threatened, different things. So what they do is they rather say they were the criminal or they did what they didn't do than the other way around. So a third of these cases, these people that were later exonerated went to jail or decided to go to jail because although they had not confessed, they had not committed the crime. 21 out of these 367 that were freed or exonerated by DNA were already in the death row. They were on the death row for something they didn't commit. They had no idea what was being, discussed, what they were in there. 21 cases. Almost half of the cases put people in jail due to forensic mistakes. There are two types of forensic mistakes. One type is an involuntary mistake in which those analyzing the forensic team or crew looks at all the evidence and they kind of overlook some small detail here or there, and it just takes place. They convict somebody, and that's not the case. The other type is a voluntary mistake in which, for personal or group interests, it is more interesting to have this particular person in jail than to seek for the truth. Okay, or to continue with the investigation. So that's almost half of the cases. Now look at this. 70% of these cases sent these people to jail or they were convicted by visual ID. What is visual ID? We see that a lot in Hollywood movies on crimes and stuff like that. When they want to make sure that somebody is a criminal, they take that somebody and other people looking like that one, and they put into a room against a glass. Okay, the convicted ones cannot see who is on the other side of the glass. On the other side of the glass, usually you have witnesses or those against who the crimes were committed, so they will identify the convict. So you put 5, 6, 7 people, and they are asked, Which one of these committed a crime? Which one of these should be convicted? And people will say, well, it was number 2, or it was number 4, or whoever it is. Now, 70% of the people who identified these 367 inmates did it wrong. How come? You know, Spiritist philosophy starts here, right? Why are we doing this? Why are we sending people to jail knowingly? Because when I choose number 4 instead of number 2, or number 4 instead of it's none of these, it is a conscious decision. I'm making a choice. Why are we making that choice? Because we can't deal with our problems. It's just easier to get it over with and get this thing out of my head and done. Well, that's used and accepted in human justice. Is it accepted in divine justice? I don't think so. And there are nasty consequences. 70% of these people were ID'd, visual ID'd, wrongly. Incredible. And one of these cases is this guy here, Charlie Williams. He became very famous lately. He's been on the news for at least 6 months. He spent 37 years in jail, 37 years. When he was convicted, his sentence was you're going to spend life in prison without the possibility for parole. He was accused of aggravated rape murder, something he never did, and he wasn't even aware of anything like that. Well, a very interesting situation here. After 37 years, he was exonerated by DNA. And the reason why he became, I wouldn't say famous, but he became a popular name in our society is he went to sing as a singer in one of the television shows, America's Got Talent. And before you actually sing, the judges, those who are going to judge, 4 judges, they just ask him, a brief history. Who are you? What do you do? And in there, he said, well, I just came out of jail. I spent 37 years in jail. And that shocked the audience. So he spoke a little bit about his situation. And he, after that, he went to sing his song, the song he had intended for, which is, you see the name here on the screen, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me by Elton John. And he said, this song I sang in my head every day in prison. It became spiritual to me. So you see, he tries to, most of the time, he tries to get detached from being in jail and being for such a long time in jail. And this is something he said, it was given to me by the spirits. It's very interesting, right? I used to listen to it in prison, and the words would just come back up whenever it was needed. So of course he had his mentors and spirit guides helping him, and the song did help him a lot. And then this is something he said after he went out of prison: freedom is of the mind. I went to prison, but I never let my mind go to prison. That's interesting. When you're faced with dark times, what I would do is pray and sing. This is how I got peace. So although he was in prison, he was in peace inside, internally. And that's why he was able to spend all this time, not go crazy, not do anything, that he shouldn't be done. 37 years, exoneration by DNA. Then when the story came up, we went back 37 years ago, the whole society, what happened on that day? How come you put somebody in prison like that? And it turns out that the woman who was the victim went to ID, and she did not ID him. Then the person, it was a small town in Louisiana, the person who was in charge of the investigation forced the woman to ID him. And she said, no, it was not him. Regardless, they said, the investigator said, she ID'd this guy. Let's put him in jail. Many, 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 many years later, it was known, this guy came out and said, well, I was just afraid that if we didn't put anybody in jail, I wouldn't have done my job right. Wow. Divine justice is waiting for you, my friend. All right? 37 years in jail. So here, this is a group of people that founded this innocent project, which helps people in jail they are not criminals, to be exonerated by DNA. This group of people helped Archie Williams. He came out of jail with the help of this group. It's a beautiful work that these people are doing. And here we have 3 more aspects that are part of human justice, but not part of divine justice. Our justice fails. It does. And a lot. We just saw one huge case there. Our justice is based on, I can do this myself with my own hands. That's what the people investigating Archie Williams' case did. Okay. Number 3, revenge. Our justice system is very much based on revenge. You did this, okay, you're going to see what happens to you. None of these 3 things, like none of the other 6 that we saw before, are part of divine justice. None. There is no such a thing as it fails and revenge in divine justice. It's simply not part of it. Let me show you one last case so we can analyze a little bit. I'm going to show a very short video. Look at this video. Just a few seconds, okay? I'm going to say for myself, I don't know about you who is listening to me, but for me, it looks like this guy is going to take or maybe rob this gentleman with his briefcase. That's what it looks like to me. It's a very short video. Let's get a longer shot of the video. So the guy actually comes from very far. He's not near the gentleman. He comes from very far, crosses the entire road, gets to the gentleman, and he tries to protect himself by putting the briefcase in front of him. Let's look at a longer shot of this video. So for me, right now, this guy's convicted, should be convicted. This guy wants to rob the gentleman. Okay, so here it is. Let's look at a little bit more piece of information here. Here's another angle. Wow. Shame on me who convicted the guy in my head. Shame on me. You see, our justice looks at part of things. We make judgments based on parts and pieces of things. This is why our justice is fragmented. Our justice is very personal. When I saw that guy for the first time, the first few seconds of the video, going towards a gentleman, I said, this is it. I know what's happening. I know it all. This guy should go to jail. That's just my personal opinion, nothing else. Okay? We look at justice as a punctual. We only see that one moment that matters in the case. The moment that mattered to me in the case on those few seconds was the moment he approached the gentleman and got his hands on his briefcase. Our justice is punctual. It doesn't look at a wide range of things. And I love this expression. Our justice focus on expressed cruelty. This expression, expressed cruelty, is actually taught to us by Spirit Emmanuel. He uses this when he's explaining about divine justice. We look at the expressed cruelty, nothing else. We don't look around. We don't try to see what's going on, what the situation was. Very much we look at that one moment, punctual justice. None of these 3 things, like none of the other 9, are part of divine justice. So we are going off tracks with our human justice, completely different than what it should be. So what happens is there's a tremendous difference between our justice and divine justice. We go through a series of lives. You can see a diagram here. So we are incarnated at a point, we discarnate, we come back, we go back, and in its sequence of reincarnations. Let's say, for example, on this blue incarnation here on the right side, on this very moment, I commit a crime. On this very moment, during my incarnated life, I commit some sort of crime. Human justice looks at that one point in time, nothing else. It looks at that punctual moment there. Divine justice looks into the spiritual history, everything from day one to that moment, which completely produces a different outcome because it looks into something called reincarnation. Without the understanding of reincarnation, our justice clings to be by default unjust because we don't have all the parameters. We're making a punctual judgment on things. Divine justice looks at a broad a list of facts, if you will. So things are different. Let me just bring you try to position human justice in comparison to divine justice. We don't want to spend a lot of time here because it's not the purpose of this particular slide, but it's just for us to understand a little bit. God creates two things, a material principle and a spiritual principle. The spiritual principle will develop. It becomes an intelligent principle. It becomes a spirit. It will be able to generate a perispirit and from there a physical body. Okay, without many details because it's not really what we wanted to do today. So there are several layers here, okay? Human justice is on the bottom layer where the physical body is. There is no human justice, nothing, no evidence, no sentencing, nothing that considers even the second layer, perispirit, spirit, nothing like this. We only look at the layer, physical body. That's the range of our justice. However, we complain to the top layer that things are unjust. This is not just. This is not fair. This is not right. How can we, down here in the layer of the physical body, complain to a layer that's at least six layers ahead of, on top of us? How can we? But we do. You see, we do. So there's a lot to be learned. There's a tremendous difference between the two justices. Let's try to symbolize in a matrix here what these how we could compare these two things. So the range of human justice is only us here. It could be something personal, just myself, something tribal, the group of people around me, a small society, a country, although there's a limited range. Divine justice does not consider, groups of people, nothing like this. It's universal. It's for everyone, all across. Our reference for justice is the laws that we write ourselves. For God, divine justice, divine law is different. It doesn't look into something that we write ourselves. There's only one law: justice, love, and charity. Everything else derives from this one. So it's a static thing. There's no, let's write this and change there. There is no such a thing. The law, the human justice has a foundation, which is revenge and judgment. We judge mostly based on revenge, like we saw several cases here. And that's not the case in divine justice. It's based on universal balance, equilibrium. Everything, you did something here, you're going to have to offset somehow later on at a certain point. What's the integrity of our justice? Not really very good, right? We use fragmented truth, and that we see in trials all the time. When lawyers have to choose witnesses, no, this guy I don't want because he's going to talk about this, and I don't want this. I need to hide that piece of evidence. That's fragmented truth. Okay, our integrity is minimal. We have nuances, favoritism. We move things around in a game, and there is no such a thing for divine justice. It's comprehensive, same for all. The longevity of our laws, of our human justice, is limited because things will have to change. We just saw in the first case when we spoke about Dred Scott in 1857, the slave. We had to change that. We had to adapt that to our more modern time, a different place. So those are the longevity of our laws, and human justice is limited, very limited. For God, it's an eternal thing, timeless, untouchable, and immutable. Our human justice is susceptible to influences such as you see here: social status, cultural society, etc., where in divine justice, everything is based on one thing only: the responsibility of those who committed whatever they committed, and it has to do with the level of evolution that they are, spiritual evolution. We condition our references to things that we know. God doesn't. What does it mean? Here's an example. Let me try to go by example. I think it's easier by analogy. Let's go back in time a few decades, or maybe 15, 20 years ago. Just think about this. The first guy who was able to commit a cybercrime. What is a cybercrime? Somebody stole money from one bank account to another using a computer, not physically going into the branch with weapons, nothing like this. Electronically, somebody was able to break into a system and transfer money from one account to another, and this person gets caught. Let's say this person gets caught. All right, so now we have to, so he's convicted. We have to produce a sentence. How are we going to do here? You see, it's the first case ever. We don't have any reference. Nobody ever saw anything like this before. So we're going to have to create something new. And just for the sake of the idea behind this, let's just say, well, this guy stole $1 million. He's going to spend 1 year in jail. Next time we catch somebody else who spent 10 million. What's the sentence? Well, we're going to use an existing reference. Well, this guy last year, he stole $1 million. He went to jail for 1 year. This guy spent, he stole $10 million. He's going to spend 10 years in jail. So our references, our system uses references that we create ourselves. If that reference is no good, anything that derives from it is also no good. For God, there is no such a thing. No relative references. Everything is absolute. Here's the law, and that's it. Human justice is flexible to the point that it takes bargains, negotiations. We can, let's adjust this here, this there. There is no such a thing in divine justice. Personal, not transferable. You did it, you're going to have to offset. The general purpose of human justice is re-education for material life, although it's completely different than divine justice, in which we should be educated for spiritual life. You see, we will never gonna see a sentence here in our human justice that would say something like this: well, your crime is really bad and nasty, and you're gonna spend the rest of your life in jail, plus the first 10 years of your next life also in jail. There is no such a thing. So our system here, our human justice, is re-education for this one material life only. So there's a limit to the max penalty that we can do, which is either death row or life in prison. That's it, because there's nothing comes after that for the judicial system. For God, no, that's different. Your penalty depends on yourself. How fast you want to improve, how fast you how long do you want this to take? It's on us. It's not a third party kind of thing. The visibility of our law is very limited, like we saw here in a couple of cases. It's punctual. We'll look at the thing at that time, although in divine justice we just saw reincarnation becomes an important thing. So divine justice is based on something different to each one according to their deeds. Depends on what you've been doing since day one, life after life after life. Our justice clings to materialism, while divine justice does not. It's a cosmic thing. It's universal, same for all, that's it. Who is the judge in our human justice? It's a third party person. For example, let's say I committed a crime against somebody. So now I'm going to, be convicted, and I'm sitting in the trial, in my trial, and the person who's going, or the people, okay, who are going to give me the outcome of my sentence, they are people who do not know me. They do not know the victim. It's a completely independent person in terms of relationship to me and the victim. It's a third party. It's outsourced, if you will. For divine justice, that's not it. The person given the sentence is the offender himself, herself. Can you imagine in our system here, if I'm sitting in my trial, judge comes to me and says, listen, you've committed this and this and this and this. What do you think you should get as a sentence? And I will be the one deciding myself. That would be a disaster. You know that. And that's not what divine justice is. And lastly, the focus, we spoke about this before, the focus of our human justice is expressed cruelty, is the crime itself, is the sin itself. For divine justice, it's not. It considers a positive outcome of the situation. I'm going to come back here in a little bit. So, divine justice is based on balance, equilibrium. Human justice is not, it's different. So let's go back to this a little bit here. This is our list of trying to compare things side by side. I want to focus and look at the last one here. You see, we judge things based on expressed cruelty. Divine justice looks at the outcome if it's positive. With this in mind, okay, let me say this again. Divine justice considers the positive outcome, Spirit Emmanuel. With this in mind, we go back to the first question. Was the crucifixion of Jesus just and fair? And why? You have your answer. I have mine. Hopefully, we have the same answer. But hopefully, what we did here so far gives us, myself included, gives us elements to make a better, broader analysis. I'm not going to say judgment, analysis on things. Was there a positive outcome in him being crucified? If he had died from, say, old age, would the outcome be the same? Half of the planet following him, Christianity. Just saying. Think about that. This image defines everything, I think, because we do not understand divine justice. And we just saw that with the question how complicated it gets. Because we do not understand, often, really often, we are run over by it. Divine justice runs over us several times a day. We revolt, we choose and pick what's true, what's not. That's not divine justice, that's us. In the book Heaven and Hell, Allan Kardec will at length, it's a huge book, 500 pages, at length study and bring us all sorts of information about divine justice. In there's a little section that in the modern translations became known as a small section called Penal Code of the Future Life, in which he's going to analyze things such as, well, these are consequences of things that we do. If we do this, that's going to happen, and so and so and so. Very interesting. Very interesting. It's worth a deep study. It's worth whatever number of hours we need to digest the information. It's not long, it's a few pages, but it will take time to digest. And I want to just bring a last thing so we can think together here. This is a statement, as you see. Imagine that you go to the stadium because you want to see the game. So you're sitting somewhere in one of the seats in the stadium, and there was a certain movement in which two players are, this is a soccer game, two players are with the ball, and one of them goes to the floor. I'm going to say that because I don't want to make any judgment. Okay, so one falls and the other doesn't. And at that point, you say, well, that was supposed to be a foul play. And the other person sitting by you, it's not. Well, let's analyze this here. Let's say I am sitting right there on that spot. By the way, just to make sure, okay, I can only sit in one spot. So I'm there, right there, spot A. And I swear to you, way of saying, I swear to you that it was a foul play. The person sitting on this other spot B at the same time on the same game is going to look at me and say, what's happening to you? You're wrong. The person sitting in here is going to say something different. And the person sitting here is going to say something different. And this one, and it goes on and on and on and on. And you have 60,000 people watching the game at the same time, not via television, not transmission, not recorded later, at the same time, 60,000 people. And you're going to have 60,000 different opinions. And why is that? And then it gets worse. Let's say, for example, I go home after the game and my folks at home ask me, how was the game? And I'm going to narrate to them what I think it happened on this particular scene. And I'm going to say, well, this happened and so and so and so. They did not see it. They were not there, but they're going to hopefully believe what I'm saying. So now we have somebody making a judgment who wasn't even at the game, just by listening to somebody else who was there and had their own opinion. Why is it so complicated? Who is right, who is wrong? Because, you know, some people are going to say the outcome of this particular scene was just. And some other people are going to say, we're not. It was not just. We are just observers. We are watching the game. When I observe, I can only observe from my point of view. If I'm sitting on A, I cannot tell you what the guy sitting on E saw. I cannot tell you what guy sitting on C saw because I'm not there. All I can see are possibilities. All I can say is, well, I'm on A and I saw this, but the guy on B might have seen something else. I cannot tell for sure what he saw. I can maybe create a probability, a possibility that he saw something different. And that's why we have this idea of fragmenting the truth. Because the way we do is, I was on A, I saw it, and that's the truth. B is wrong, C is wrong, D is wrong, E is wrong, because I was there and that's it. That's how we fragment the truth. And based on that little piece of evidence, little fragment of the truth, we make judgments on things. So we judge it, the entire stadium, we replace the words of it, the entire 60,000 people with our words. That's how we conduct human justice. And then for me to be able to tell the truth without any fragments, I would have to have one attribute called omnipresence. I would have to be in all 60,000 seats, plus I would have to be on the field at the same time. Do I have that ability? No, I don't. No omnipresence. For me to be able to tell the actual truth, I would have to have knowledge of everything that happened at the same time. It's called omniscience. Do I have that attribute? I don't. And I would have to have another attribute called omnipotency, in which I can do it all. I'm able to produce the actual outcome. The only truth that there was. Am I able to do this? We're not. These three things, omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotency, take away from us any possibility that we have the entire truth in us, within us. It's not going to happen. And that's what we use for human justice. Thus, human justice and divine justice are never going to be the same. It's difficult for us to understand divine justice because we don't have the three basic attributes: omnipresence, science, and potency. So, hopefully, you can give it some thought. I myself, I spent a lot of time, a lot of years thinking about all this thing because it was very challenging for me. It was very challenging for me when I was reading something that was probably about 8 or 10 years ago. I was reading something and it just hit me. You know, everybody, going back to the time of Jesus, everybody says, you know, it was not just and fair and so and so. But there were those who said, no, it was just and fair. They put him on the cross. So regardless of who did, some people thought it was fair. Some people thought not fair. And I said, what do I think? But mostly, why do I think? Saying yes or no is not enough. Justifying my answer from my heart with conviction. It took me years to get there because I didn't have the right tools. I had to reread Heaven and Hell. I had to read a lot of Spirit Emmanuel's information to get to this. So hopefully, you know, you can do the same and answer from your heart always. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Luiz. That was a wonderful presentation. Everything that you brought today gave us a lot of things to reflect. Definitely, especially, you know, concerning our own behaviors.
Yes.
Which is something that we should be really focusing. And we have a few questions here that we would like to bring now. In your opinion, how could we get closer to divine justice to remove human injustice from the world?
Well, human justice is centered on us. We make the laws, okay? And sometimes it gets so bad that we make little micro laws like this, for example. You see me in yellow shirt here, right? So my law today is people in yellow shirt are bright. Okay. Tomorrow, you're going to see me wearing a blue shirt. And you're going to come to me and say, oh, you're not bright anymore. I said, no. People in blue shirts are bright. So you see, I had to change my own rules because that justice, that reference that I used was just for myself at that time and place. As we go along and we understand that justice is not centered on us, it doesn't make sense to center on us, we will move away from being wrong, if you will, and automatically puts on a better, a right track to being right or closer to divine justice by eliminating this selfishness that I am right, you're wrong. You know, the pride is what kills everything. Pride is a big enemy. Right? So I think that's what we should consider. We judge bad because of our pride and selfishness.
Okay, thank you. A question from Glaucio. Thank you, Glaucio. How to best filter out the legal element of the Old Testament and extract these eternal teachings?
That's something interesting. If you take the New Testament, you're talking about the Old, okay? If you take the New Testament and you look at what Jesus was doing, he was picking up the Old Testament and extracting some of the elements in there that had to be passed along. Some other elements didn't matter. And Christianity in general, it looks like it didn't understand exactly that. We Spiritists, we take the entire New Testament, and anything that is a narrative is out, is filtered out. It doesn't matter if you went up the hill or down the hill before speaking, before teaching. What matters is the teaching itself. So the elements that compose the historical part, the narratives, and so these are filtered out. And we are concerned about the moral teachings. The Old Testament and those who follow the Old Testament usually are centered on the legal elements. The legal and legality and justice at the time was very strong, was a very, still it is in Judaism. The legal elements, aspects are very strong still, but times are different. When Jesus came to say, you got the law, but you have to reinterpret the law, times were different already from the days that the Old Testament was written. And they're even more different now. So yes, there will be always those who go back to the Old Testament and going to see, well, this is legal or it's not. This should be done or should be not. Again, that's human justice because it's looking into something that is corruptible in the good sense. I'm talking about corruptible meaning destroyable, okay? Destroyable by time and place. Those laws, at one point, even for those who follow today, they will change with time and in different places. But the moral teachings, the morality behind this, all of this, will never change. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be the same because it comes from the highest level above, which is the supreme intelligence.
While you were talking about it, I was even remember a statement from Kardec where he says, when referring to the gospel according to Spiritism, right, that the moral doesn't change. I mean, everything else, even like he said, the book Genesis, item 55. I mean, if science comes and proves something is not that way anymore longer, we just go and follow science. But the moral, especially the moral that we learned from the teachings of Jesus, from divine justice, that it's, it's lasting and it's the same.
It's timeless.
Yes, timeless. Exactly. Thank you.
You see, I think the difference is the integrity. Mm-hmm. The integrity. Our laws have a questionable, of course, integrity. Divine laws does not. Mm-hmm. You will never change. Immutable. That's it.
Yeah.
It was the same 3,000 years ago. We will be the same 20,000 years ahead of us. So.
Yeah, I like it very much how, you use this word so powerful, integrity. It's you nailed. Okay, let's go to the next one. In terms of wealth, the Gospel according to Spiritism tells us that it is important to have it to foster progress. How can we conciliate this idea with the situation of poverty we see all around?
You see, wealth is not a crime. That needs to be understood. Wealth is not a moral crime. It's not even a social crime. We need wealth because wealth provides us with basic resources to do things. Wealth is neutral. The amounts of money, that's neutral. What we do with that is what matters. You see, wealth is on the material side of things. The intelligent principle, that's us. That's on the spiritual side of things. So what the intelligence does with the material things, that's what the problem is. The problem is not wealth. The problem is how we handle it, how we deal with that, how we look at it. If we look at it and say, all the money in the world should be mine, there's going to be one outcome. If I say, well, I can take this little piece here and I can use for this charity work and leave something else for others to do the same, that's a completely different outcome. Divine justice does not go against the material part. It goes against the spiritual part, which is us. It goes against the intelligent principle.
Okay, thank you. I think I have another one. What about justice on our day-to-day lives? When people are unfair with us, criticizing and spreading lies and gossiping, how can we deal with that?
There was a man 2,000 years ago who suffered that. He was gossiped on. He was, all kinds of things. How did he react? All right. He reacted based on divine justice, meaning if I do something now, if I attack these people who are attacking me, if I fight, if I do this and that, there's going to be a price to pay. There's going to be a price to pay. That's in the penal code of the future life, right? If you do this, that's going to happen to you. So how did he deal with that? By making use of divine justice. I should not do this because I should not react. I should not, gossip as the same way they do. I should not lie the same way they do or criticize, because this is going to have me offset. I'm not going to say pay. I don't like the word pay because it might give a wrong idea, but I'm going to have to offset that. So it's just better to, okay, they're doing this to me. They don't know what they're doing. Father, they don't know what they're doing. And pray for them. And of course, it's difficult. So people who do this to us all the time, maybe you don't want to be so close to them all the time, but don't get away from it. Don't walk away, because they are our they are our opportunity to face that and not react against divine justice. You see, stay in the battlefield. That's what I usually say. Stay in the battlefield. Don't run away from these people. Don't get away. We still need them to be here and say, I'm strong because I'm holding this really good. They're doing this to me every single day, and here I am. And I'm not going against divine justice. It's our opportunity to prove to ourselves that we can do it, and we will do it. We will prevail.
And sometimes it's not only that, you have to put it in the equation forgiveness as well, right? So it makes
absolutely.
it even more challenging.
Much more. Yeah, these people, we call them enemies. They are our best friends, actually. They are best friends. And like I said, we should never run away from our best friends. If we have somebody that we kind of don't get along with, if you will, and every time you're around that person, you feel this and that, that's the person you need to be with at times to practice that imperfection. They will be like, touching us all the time with that. And we need to work on those. They are just telling us, work on that.
To keep us on check, right? In check.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think we still have another one. Do you believe the lack of justice is still prevailing in our world, prevents people to believe in God?
You see, justice is human justice here that the person is mentioning. It's human justice. And human justice, here's an example. If you go to a terrorist, okay, and you have an interview with them, and you sit down with them and say, do you believe what you're doing is wrong? What do you think the answer is? He's going to say, of course not. I'm doing the right thing. He's one of the 60,000 people in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I am another one of those 60,000 people in the stadium. Josara is another one. And you listening to us right now, you are one of them too. So when you say justice prevails, which justice? There are 7 billion justices in the world. Each one of them created by us, by one of us. So there's lack of justice. There's always going to be, because some people will always say, I'm right and you're wrong. It's human nature. It's the way that trials and expiations works. That's what we're here for, to deal with things like this. So by definition, is there always lack of justice? Yes. But then, which justice are we looking at? Human justice. If you look at divine justice, there's no lack of justice. Otherwise, you're telling us, if you believe in lack of justice, you're telling us that the crucifixion was unfair and unjust. And you're going against the number one law, justice, love, and charity, because God doesn't do anything unjust.
Okay. So I think that was our last question. Once again, we want to congratulate and show our gratitude to you, Luiz. I hope you will be able to come back soon and do another great work for us. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much, everyone that have tuned with us today, everyone that has been following these talks. And remember that you can at any time watch it again, send to others. I think this one is really for people to hear. You brought wonderful things really for us to think about. And next week we will have as our guest speaker Adrian Alvarez, that is going to be talking about the psychology of gratitude, why we remain grateful even in difficult times. So don't miss that. And at this time we would like to invite Luiz for his final words, and also to conduct the final prayer for us before we finish this presentation today. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So I just want to maybe say that divine justice is difficult. That the purpose of all this talk that you here and I participated on is not to bring the idea, oh, this is so hard, so difficult. That's not it. The idea is the other way around. It's doable, because now we know. When we don't know what divine justice is, it runs over us. But now we know. It's in our books, and it's actually in our hearts. It's just a matter of allocating resources and willingness to do it, and we will do, and we will prevail. Of course, so we can go into our final prayer with our masters and guides always on our sides. Thank you, Jesus, for this opportunity to be here, all of us reunited in your name, for another round of studies and discussion on your teachings, trying to understand and comprehend the greater law, justice, love, and charity. We wanted to thank the Father for all the blessings that we have received in our lives, our spirit guides that are with us every day in the journey, and that we can always focus on high above. Divine justice is what helps us go through the journey towards perfection. So thank you, Jesus, very much for this opportunity. So be it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and I see you next Saturday.